Hello, everyone. I want to put together a short lecture dealing with the topic here out of this chapter on perception I call sensation of perception. Talk about a concept called perception by exception. Okay, I'm sorry, I had trouble saying that there. I think I may have that spelled wrong, so let's move on here. Attention by exception. Okay. First of all, we talked about, if you watch the earlier videos, what perception is all about, how companies use sensation to get us to notice through vision, through sound, through taste, through touch, and so on. Let's turn around and talk about how they get our attention here, okay? As you see there are really a lot of things to attend to. We are exposed to more than thousands of stimuli every day, but we really only pay attention to a very small portion of what is out there. That tends to be very similar or very common for us in the way we handle things. All right. So what gets our attention? And the answer is contrast. Things that stand out from the norm tend to get our attention. If you look in a crowd of people and you see someone turn around within that crowd and is considerably taller than everyone else, that is the person that most people tend to look at. If someone is shorter than everyone else, that tends to be the person that we look at. If things are louder than the other sounds around us, we pay attention to that. Or if people actually whisper, that's another example of contrast where people turn around and what do? They basically try to listen into a conversation because someone is whispering. If a person talks like that, we pay more attention because we want to know what they're all about. So this contrast is known as perception by exception, okay? And that's what it is. A lot of ads are designed so that we notice things which stand out from the norm. Okay? Things that stand out from the norm are the things that we tend to pay attention to. Contrast involves a lot of high intensity exposure, okay? Things that are louder than the norm, all right? Things that are brighter than everything around it, things that create movement when everything around you is not moving. But we also notice things that are below the norm, as I had just mentioned a few moments before that. If something is not as loud, if something is not as intense, we tend to notice that. So you can create ads, and companies do, where your product stands out because it's so much more intense than everything around. Or you can look at ads where the product is much less intense than everything it's around. And that's what we're talking about. Let me give you some examples of perception by exception. Let's start off with color, okay? Take a look at this ad right here. Basically, you have an ad that is very bright. The product is very clear. It's Tide. It's a bright yellow, red with yellow circles. Everything else is sort of pastel around it. There is really no doubt what the product is all about. All right, that's an example of perception by exception in a very colorful, intensive way. Then you have an ad right here that basically is more in the black and white. Once again, it contrasts, all right? Or if you really want to do it right, turn around and create an ad where everything's in black and white, and then the product that you're pushing is in color, all right? So these are all examples of this contrast, perception by exception, all right? Now, intensity is another example of this. And I just put the words up here because basically, bright lights and dim lights. Why do people turn around and hire these companies that will shine lights into the heavens at night that rotate and things like that? Because people have been known to travel to where those lights are to see what's going on. Those lights stand out from everything else, and people want to know what that's about. Dim lights, exact same way. We notice things that are below the norm because they contrast the norm and they are an exception to the norm. So these are both ways to get things to get you to pay attention. Motion. Motion is a hard thing to show in a magazine ad. Motion is a hard thing to show in a still image, but that doesn't mean there are not pictures of movement, okay? Where basically, as you see there from the picture, there's a splash of color and creates the illusion of movement. Even drawings can be done in such a way as to create wavy lines and the idea that things are moving and stuff like that. What's really neat is if you can create lights in such a way as to create the illusion of movement. And if you've ever been to Las Vegas or at least watched ads in Las Vegas, so many signs in Las Vegas turn around and create the illusion of movement. Now, I've not done this before, but I'm going to try this to click on a hyperlink here and see if we can get this to open, and you can see a quick YouTube video of what I'm talking about. All right. This may or may not work, but we'll give it a try. As you see, you've got lights moving, everything's moving, but there's no actual movement taking place there. It's not actually occurring, but it creates the illusion of movement, and that's sort of what it's all about. People tend to notice these kind of ads because of the movement that seems to exist within them. All right, so that's always a very, very good one. And still another one is the ultimate example of movement. Once again, if this does not work in the video, I suggest going to YouTube and type in the phrase Wynn Resorts mega sign. This sign is a fantastic example because not only does it create the illusion of movement, but the sign itself actually goes up and down. The words, the phrasing, the name of the hotel casino actually goes up and down in the ad, and it causes people to pay more attention to it. There are times that the Wynn ad actually, the phrase incorporates into the video, so they go together. And as you can see, if you're able to see the Wynn Las Vegas sign YouTube thing, as the sign drops, it looks like there's a mechanical arm that is drawing words and so on. So it's designed to go together. It's really incredible. So those are some wonderful examples of how this works, okay? Another example of perception by exception or contrast is size. And the question is bigger always better when it comes to consumer marketing ads? We've seen ads now that are so big that they will fit on the side of an entire building, okay? And that is very, very true. That sometimes, yes, as far as marketing goes, bigger is better for catching the attention of your consumer. But sometimes the answer is no, because if everything around an ad, if everything around your ad is big, just like your ad is, then it doesn't stand out. And in that case, it doesn't tend to work well. And obviously, that's not what we're after. We want to turn around and make sure ours contrasts. In fact, if they're all big ads, maybe you want to market somewhere else in a different page or somewhere where your ad is different in size, really does tend to stand out. We speak of the term known as ambiguity, okay? Ambiguity is all about the idea that vague ads that are not clear as to what their product is, their purpose and stuff like that, they require more attention, okay? And if you have to look at it longer to figure out what the ad is all about, you increase the chance that a customer pays attention and possibly even a sale. Here's an old ad for Calgon, okay? It says, "Wake up to Calgon." And the idea is you've got a picture of a scantily clad young lady supposedly in the shower in the background. All right. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is you can't see anything, but people will spend more time looking at the ad in the hopes of noticing something, and therefore turns around and you pay more attention to the product. So ambiguity, vagueness can sometimes work when creating an ad. There is also a term known as novelty. Ads that are different from others tend to be noticed, okay? So how it means that your ad is more novel, it stands out. So what are we talking about? How can you get your ad to be noticed and be different from all the others? Well, you can place them in different locations from typical ads. All right. You can turn around and put them in places. I've seen ads in places you wouldn't expect them, from over bathroom stalls to other locations where you wouldn't expect to see ads before. The problem is when everybody starts to do that, it sort of loses its individuality to it. Okay, but if you can find a place where there's less competition, you're the one and the only one marketing. You run the probability that people will notice it, and that's what it's all about. Okay, here's an example of an ad. And actually, I put both of these up here. The first is an example of advertising that is done at a supermarket and is basically all about where you start down a given aisle, that the little television on your shopping cart lights up and tells you what products are on sale in that particular aisle. It works well, but a lot of times I've read articles that these screens take a beating and a pounding, and sometimes they get to be rather expensive for the sales that tend to occur. But you see there where some people will turn around in the name of novelty and advertise right over a bathroom stall or something like that. Honestly, because a person is pretty much going to stay there, a gentleman, until they finish what they have to do. And so you've got a captive audience for a handful of minutes or moments in that regard. Positioning. Positioning is not directly related to perception by exception, but what we find is this. We tend to notice things if they are placed where we might look, okay? So some people have gotten some wild ideas to place ads in places you wouldn't think, such as a college basketball game or an NBA or WNBA basketball game where you see the banners constantly changing in front of the press stand or something like that. Or here you might turn around and see on the outfield fence an ad for a particular company, or maybe the ad would be over the ice rink or something like that at a hockey stadium. It's where people tend to look to find information, so it can sometimes be a great place to put things. And then finally, we talk about what are called Gestalt Principles. Gestalt principles simply mean that we tend to perceive things in the simplest way possible. We tend to perceive things in the simplest way possible. For example, we have to a lot of times figure out what is it we're looking at and what is part of the background, the object in the background. There is a concept mentioned in your chapter called figure ground perception. And the basic definition of figure ground perception is that you have to determine an object from a background. If you look at a picture such as this, this is called the infamous vases, faces picture, where you look at it at one point and you see a vase. And in that case, the figure, the vase, is white and the background is black. If you do happen to notice, you can see two faces looking at each other. If you see two faces, then the faces are the figure and they're black and the background is white. Okay, so this is an example of how this would work, objects from backgrounds. A lot of times in advertising, products really need to stand apart from the background. Okay, there shouldn't be any loss or wonderment. What is it they're trying to sell? Because if you do that, then people turn around and may not be interested. This is sort of the opposite of ambiguity. Okay, you see the ad on the left, it's very clear there. Extreme coffee comes with extreme perks, you know, Cafe Express. Or on the right, there's no doubt what the product is. It's an old style desktop Dell computer system. All right. You don't sit there wondering. The product stands out from the background. Okay. If you don't make things clear, consumers can be confused by the ad. And if they're confused by the ad, sometimes they're not going to go to the trouble to figure it out. Closure. Closure is all about filling in missing information. All right. That's sort of the basic definition, to fill in missing information. You turn around and you look at this design and you ask yourself, do you see 3 circles? Do you see a triangle? Or do you see an upside down triangle? In all instances, none of those things are actually there, all right? But you tend to fill in missing information, and that's how they appear, all right? This is also known as something of deductive reasoning, because you don't always have all the information available to put things together. All right. So in ads, attempts at closure should be easy to do. It should be very easy to fill in the missing information, all right? Or people are going to lose interest in an ad. But you can use closure. You can use a chance to do a little deductive reasoning because it makes the customer think. It makes them think about the ad, and that's what we're all about. Let me give you an example here, okay? If you take a look at this picture here, this is for Absolute vodka, or excuse me, I'm sorry. It looks like it's Absolute vodka. My apologies, but it says Absolute San Diego. If you look right between the eyes of that zebra and above its nose, it sort of looks like a bottle. Okay, it's designed to make you understand pretty quick what it's all about, and it can work. It really truly can in that regard. Here's another one. It says Ingle L's, and if you read the bottom, it says the holidays aren't the same without J and B. Okay, that's another alcohol ad, but you don't have to put a lot of work in it to figure out what it's all about. But it's a wonderful example to get people to pay attention because there's closure involved. They have to do some deductive reasoning to see what the ad's all about, and now you've got the customer thinking. Okay, that's enough for this particular one. Put together one more little lecture. Hope they're helpful. Always remember, you can stop these and write things down and then come back to them if you need to. Job well done.